Greetings and salutations. I'm Largo. This is still the Lair. And tonight, on the Infinite Playlist, I come before you to stand behind you to tell you something I know nothing about. I'm talking about video game music, 8-bit, 16-bit, and such, which not real familiar with. But I do have a couple of friends who are, and they're going to come and share their knowledge, starting with Wilhelm. There he is.
Hey, how's it going?
Getting there, slowly but surely. I've been having some troll problems. I've got Joe on the case.
Nice.
Troll's acting up. We're in training. Once we get him into fighting shape, I'm going to sick him on the rooster and see how he does.
He won't stand a chance.
Well, that's why there's so many Joes, and they all look alike. So you can just replace them with the next one. So let's introduce our epic guest. The epic badger.
Hey, Jesse, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good.
So, if I seem more lethargic than usual, I just got off of work maybe 3 or 5 minutes ago. And as soon as we're done tonight, I'm pulling out my work laptop and I'll be on for another hour or two.
Oh,
It's a busy week, but that's fine. I've got a soda. I've got friends. I've got a badger in a box over there.
And there was great rejoicing.
Yay. I have caffeine though, so this is the first caffeine I've had today. So maybe I'll wake up in about 20 minutes.
Caffeine
so
is
maybe,
good.
Maybe you could, just forget about your troubles for a small portion of the day, and we could have some fun.
Indeed. Bjorn's in the house. Schmodulok, Shamalama, Ding Dong, and all that good stuff. We're getting there, as the epic one is telling us. Axion Figs. He has arrived.
Yes.
Groovy. We're going to talk some digital tunage tonight. Gojitron.
Yes.
Good to see you. Had a great time hanging out with him, talking Hammer Horror recently.
That was fun.
Oh, yeah.
And we have
James, right?
James from Ratface 44 Reviews. Good to see you. Good to see you. And Largo, that is my coffee troll, Goji. He is a Mythic Legions troll, and he's technically for the 1/6 scale, but he's such a beefy boy, he kind of works as a Joe adversary while I'm building my adventure team. So they're sparring.
Yeah, and those Mythic Legion figures are sweet. I'm tempted to get a troll so bad, but I don't know.
They're spendy, but they're fun, and they've got different flavors. You got this guy who's more of a rock troll. They've got a forest troll. They got an ice troll. They got giants. They got
he looks heavy. He looks heavy,
he is
right.
Yeah,
he's got some heft to him.
Yeah, Big Bad right now has a sale on the Deluxe Legion builders. And one of them includes like a barbarian who's I think they call it like a 1.5 scale. So he's a bigger dude, but not giant. But yeah, I do like Mythic Legions.
They are cool. I have a few. I kind of cherry picked the line because they're a little spendy, but
yeah,
I picked up some of their skeletons to fight my Mezco Conan and a couple other sundry.
Same thing. I've got skeletons. Bits. My skeletons are waiting for a lovely redhead to hopefully show up soon.
Sonia. Hopefully she will be sometime this quarter.
Yeah, I'm seeing reviews, so hopefully soon.
It will be good. But we're not here to talk about plastic goodness tonight. We're here to talk tunage. This is the Infinite Playlist, my friend. So, as I said, I really know very little about 8-bit or 16-bit or any other bits and bytes. I like pizza bites. They still make those?
Yeah.
Cool. So learn me something. Give me some knowledge like lightning on my brain.
Okay. Can you pull up the slides? Yep, there we go. Okay, yeah. So today we're just going to talk about video game soundtracks. And I've been a gamer from an early age up through today. I don't game as much as I used to. I work full time and everything. But I still do it on occasion. It's for my generation, gaming has fallen in with other hobbies. So for my generation, we'll watch a movie, we'll listen to music, podcasts, we'll play a game, we'll go outside and meet friends. It's just another part of our daily life. Unlike in the 90s and such, when my friends and I would be just addicted to them.
Right. And for us, as when video games hit the forefront, it was a very solo thing. It was either plugging it into your telly or plugging it into your PC, and there wasn't this interactive version like you have now where you can actually chat with people while you're gaming. You've got, what do you call them, the MMOs, where you can just go in and go crazy. Yeah. So neat. And as the games have evolved, so has the tunage.
Yeah.
So,
and we're just going to start with an exclaimer. Exclaimer. Okay. Hopefully you got the reference.
I got it.
Okay. But yeah, just an exclaimer. The world of gaming is massive. Games outnumber movies by a magnitude. A single developer could put out a game a year. And so even just looking at the indie scene, there's just so much content, which also means there's a lot of content for young aspiring music creators. So, you have a range of music today that's someone at a keyboard at their desk being contracted to create music, to you can purchase music that has already been made from companies and use it, get the license to add in your game. You can also be a big AAA developer hiring entire orchestras.
Cool.
But there's a lot.
Let's see what Ed's got to say here. The only interaction was fighting with your dad about how late you got to play Pac-Man on a school night back in the 80s. That's true. Yeah. And whether or not you could borrow the telly when Dad wanted to watch wrestling and you wanted to play Pitfall or what have you. And I don't think Pong on the Atari 2600 had a soundtrack. Nope, it was just the Pong sound. But things have moved on a little bit since then. And can't wait for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom this Friday.
Yeah,
nice.
Looks really good.
Looks great.
Cool. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'm going to say is there are so many rabbit holes in gaming. It's so rare to find two gamers who have the same interests, unless they're like best friends. So today, the slides that you're going to see are games that I primarily played with. This is the rabbit hole. This is the history of my gaming. It's not going to be anyone else's because we all have our own different directions to go through. But,
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, we even saw that in the Star Wars video game discussion we did. My tastes, Granted Jim's and Jim Largo's were very different.
I have to remember to go watch that because I missed it because of work.
Oh.
I am an academic, so I'm just throwing it out there. If you'd like a good introduction to video game music, Karen Collins does a really good, wrote a really nice book on it. I think it's free on Google. What do they call it? Google Books or something.
Okay. Google Reads. I think.
or
Google
something.
Reads, yeah. So you could just look it up there and read through it. But it's called Game Sound: An Introduction to the History, Theory, and Practice of Video Game Music and Sound Design. Never hurts to educate yourself. It's a
When
fun...
you're designing game soundtrack,
Mhm.
how is it? I mean, do you have to know both computer programming and music theory, or is it a whole different animal?
And it depends on how big your game studio is. If you're one person, you got to learn everything. If you're a massive company, you've got dedicated people to do it all. You know, a big company, they can hire musicians who work in coordination with programmers to get that into their systems. I don't get to see a lot of the behind the scenes of it, but I know people who basically you create your soundtrack and then you put those files into your game. But the hard part is telling the game when to play them, when to stop playing them. So you do have to have some programming if you're a single developer.
Right, because the soundtrack will change depending on what you're doing at a certain level in the game. Or
Yeah. And
Okay.
it depends if you have a dynamic soundtrack. Like if there's a point where if you die, you know, if your character gets knocked out, you have to tell the programming, hey, stop here, or loop the music back if it's a game where you can jump right back into it. There's a lot of little details, and how you do it as a developer varies wildly.
Okay.
So I thought let's start with this this classic game, Frogger.
Nice.
I did a little bit of history on it. This is from the book I just showed off, so this is all new to me. But it is the first dynamic video, or it's a game with the first dynamic video game music. So dynamic music means instead of just one song that plays on a loop for every soundtrack, there are points where you get different sounds. So each level has its own music. It was the first game to introduce a game over sound and a level start theme, in addition to 11 songs. They also don't need to do looping the same song over and over again, because each song is tied to each level, which is on a timer. The song will never go past 60 seconds because that's all you get in the level.
Yeah.
It was a smart design.
Very cool. I don't have much memory of it. This is like one of those games where like game rentals, like we never owned it. We rented it and had it for a very short period. And yeah.
It was on the Atari, but I remember it being pretty big in the arcade as well. It was simplistic graphics, but it was a fun game to play. Eduardo likes it. He likes playing chicken in the street.
Always jealous of you guys with the arcade stories, because my town had like an ordinance that you weren't allowed to have like arcade machines. Like
what?
When I was really young, the pizza shop had a tabletop Mario and Donkey Kong.
Did you grow up in that town where dancing was forbidden, like in Footloose?
Yeah, basically, we needed a Kevin Bacon. So it wasn't until later, and I'd be able to ride my bike to like neighboring towns where we'd be able to like play video games. It was really annoying. They didn't want like the bad people from other towns coming in and playing games, because like you got a video game machine in a pizza place. It's just a bunch of kids hanging out playing the game all day.
Yeah. So the fun story with Frogger, the Japanese developer, it was a story of he pulled over on a rainy day because a frog was crossing the road and he helped it across.
Aww.
And then he made the game, and then Gremlin, who was under the publisher Gremlin, who was under Sega, who was owned by Paramount. They pitched it. They said the game was too cute for boys to play. It wasn't a shooter type of game. I forget her first name, but her last name is Falconer, which I love. It's just a great name.
Yeah.
But she went into the Paramount boardroom and said, let's play this game. And they said, oh, it's too cutesy. Hey, aren't you the same board people who turned down Pac-Man before?
Yeah. Look at that.
And you're like, all right, we'll give it a shot. And then it did really well, because guess what? Every other game was a shooter. This was the first game in a while in a lot of arcades that wasn't.
Mhm.
And then, funny enough, it was the girlfriends and kids who'd play this game. They didn't want to play the shooters. So in a way, it was too cutesy for boys, but that meant it was a market that was untapped.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's a funny little story about it, but it's just interesting because the first game to introduce a game over sound, like that's pretty cool. I'm familiar with that. I would figure every game would have that.
Now, you may address this later, but I'm going to ask now because I have about a 60-second memory span. It comes from sniffing glue. Don't sniff glue, kids. No. So, because a lot of these games were developed in Japan, was there a Japanese influence in the music as this started to develop and become more sophisticated?
I'm probably not the right person to ask because this era of gaming is still a little bit outside my knowledge. I would say that with the limitations on what you could do with the music at the time, I don't think there would be much Japanese influence. You get that with RPGs, role-playing games.
Right.
At this era, I don't think there was much to do because you had a limited set of tools and soundtrack to play with. It was all just sounds.
So this was all 8-bit at this point?
No, I don't even think it was.
I don't even think that
much. Yeah, I
Wasn't
don't
even that
think-
sophisticated. Okay.
No, and it was such a limited toolbox to work with that just getting sounds to play and a little bit of music was all you could get out of it. Obviously, later as we get into like 16-bit games and RPGs, then you would get music from different cultures. Oh,
that's right. That's why we weren't allowed in Wilhelm's town because we were glue sniffing arcade
That's
quarter
right.
hacking kids. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Grindhead's got a nice big screen.
Nice big screen.
Check
Oh,
out the big screen on that guy.
Let me get a big cloud for his big screen.
He's also got a big freaking DVD collection he was showing off on Instagram.
Yes, he does.
Or
he is quite
Facebook.
the
That was
cinephile. Indeed.
Give him a nice big cloud. Yeah. Nice.
So
here we go.
some songs don't need an introduction.
You can hear it play in your head.
And then it goes on. But I just threw this. I threw in a few classics early on just to get our brains thinking about game music before we get into some more modern stuff. But just going through, because yes, everyone knows the core Mario theme. But without even saying anything, do you know the next two?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it starts high. Da-na-na-na-na-na. 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 I think I got that last part a little off, but everyone knows that because that's the second soundtrack you hear in the game. Because you go down that pipe and it's just like everything changes from happy tunes to real serious.
Yeah.
And then Will's favorite.
I
I think it's
hate-
dun, dun, dun. No. I knew it last night, but I think I'm just too tired to remember it today. But we all have a sense of
Yeah, I hated the
It's
water.
annoying. It's like
But
carnival kind of music, and it's fun, but the controls suck, and it just sucks underwater. And if you don't have fireballs, everything sucks, and I just hate it.
But just how a few or I don't know the right verbiage, but a few chords is all you're getting out of this, and yet it's some of the most classic music, and it instantly tells you what part of the game you're in and what the mood is. When you go to the last one, if I go back one, you hear that it get quiet and then dun 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 dun. It's it sets you in place that you're in this dark area with enemies about and you have to jump around them, and how much you get out of just a little bit of music. So let's do the opposite.
Yeah.
Let's jump into a AAA title, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which creeps me out because it's not that young anymore. It feels like this game came out last year, but it's like probably 7 years ago. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's been a little while, but very sophisticated orchestral style.
Yeah. So
Now they actually got a literal orchestra to do this.
yeah, so the person who involved in charge of the music, so the studio is in Poland. And he was like, well, this is a game in a made up medieval world. It's not Europe. It's completely made up. But we're taking creatures and mythology from our history as Poles. So let's get the music to be very folklorish. But we want it to be exciting for our players. So let's get an orchestra involved. And you get this beautiful soundtrack with all this great music that you can just sit and listen to in the background. You know, it's not just little beats of a song that loops over and over again. You know, you have 3-4 minute songs that you could just chill on. And some of them are real calm because those are parts of the game where you're just walking around. Other parts are exciting because it's music for combat and boss fights.
Yeah, it's still pretty wild to me. I mean, as a kid, I remember getting into movie soundtracks and going in and buying, just the records of the music from a film or a score. Now you do that with video games. You can go in and literally just get the orchestral music from a video game. It's trippy.
And most of this music you can pull off of Spotify real easy. I don't have trouble finding most of it.
I'd really like to figure out the ins and outs of what is fair use with playing sounds on like a broadcast like this, because right now, like, I'm wondering to hear that, or it would have been nice to hear 5 seconds of Mario music or something. I know it's kind of complicated, and even though you may follow the rules, you could still kind of get like like zinged for it. But come on, world, lighten up. We're just talking about these things. We should be able to play little samples of it.
And, I figure like you're not monetized, but yet I'm still afraid of like having you play anything because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, the rules and the consequences seem to change. They keep moving the goalpost here and there. So we must use the theater of the mind.
Now, of course, The Witcher can get away with it because it's big AAA games. They have budgets that rival Hollywood. Because it costs a lot to pay programmers. Well, let's be fair, they underpay their programmers
and overwork them. But it's a full production studio, just like a movie studio.
Yeah, you have lots of people involved. You see the credits, and it's like, this is how many people worked on this. Now, if we go to, I'm just going to show you some examples of different types of soundtracks. So those of you who grew up on the 64, like me, you might remember Wave Race 64. I know Will had a fun story about that. There's 8 songs on the soundtrack. They're meant to be played, like the first one is called First Place. You get first place, you get a 30-second tune. The rest of them are songs that are just long enough for you to complete 3 laps of a course.
Okay.
That's pretty simple. Every time you do a course, you get a different song. You got one for the options screen, which is a loop because you might be on the options for a while. And then you get a couple of songs. That's pretty clear cut. Then you look at The Witcher with 55 tunes.
Wow.
The Witcher 3. And it can be anything from, so this is a big expansive world. You could spend hours walking this. Even on horseback, it would take you so long. But they have songs and there are different regions. So like there's a medieval region that's very darkish medieval. Another one, Toulouse, that's very northern Italian. So the music is more lively. There's Skellig, which is the Skellig Isles, which is very Nordic. So you get more nautical tunes and such playing in the background. So there's background music. But then if you fight, there are 2 songs. One is called Steel is for Humans and Silver for Monsters, because you have 2 swords and you use the right sword for the right type of quarry.
Right.
And you have those 2 songs, which are bangers. I listened to just those 2 songs. When you fight humans, the game knows that it has to slowly transition into Steel is for Humans or Silver for Monsters. And it transitioned into those, and as soon as the fight is over, it transitions back into your overworld music. So they have to do all this music for all these different things you're doing. And that's why these soundtracks get so ridiculously large for these big titles.
Now, what does that do as far as the size of the download for the game? Does that really inflate it a lot?
Oh yeah. I mean, you're talking. You need hard drive space. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers on my head, but I remember when I had to buy a external hard drive just to download Microsoft Flight Sim. 2020, I think that was the last one that came out. Like they're huge. They're many gigabytes. They're
Wow.
ridiculous. Um, they just take up so much hard drive space, and you have to get external hard drives in order to keep them. And that's talking about a computer, which I play a lot of these on. I play a lot of these games on Steam. If you have an Xbox or a PlayStation, you have even less space.
Hmm.
Because they don't come with a whole lot of storage space, so you have to kind of pick and choose what games to download or get them hard, digital copies. But yeah, it just balloons the size of these games because there are so many digital assets, so much. When you populate a world, there's a strategy with big worlds where the further away you look, they use fewer pixels to make.
Oh, okay.
So if you see a tree in the distance, it's using only a few pixels, but still mimicking a tree. But even with those strategies, it's so much to have this big open world, and so it's a lot of data. But
Right.
yeah,
And you can't cheat like that with the music. It all has to be there.
yeah, the music has to be spot on when it's needed.
That is interesting.
I see Jim is saying something.
You can expect most modern game soundtracks to take up at least a half a gigabyte or more, just the music.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're massive. Downloads, and people complain when you. So one thing that game companies do, or developers do, publishers, sorry, is they'll let you download games in advance. You can't play them until a certain date, but they let you do that because it could take, depending on your internet speed, it could take hours to download a game. And they
Oh,
don't
yeah.
want people waiting until the day of to have to sit there and wait 3 or 4 hours to play a game.
But the music definitely enhances the whole experience
yeah.
because it just
Absolutely.
fills in a lot of the background. It gives you an emotional connection to the game. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Speaking of emotional connection, some music just tells you everything that you want to know about the game. You hear the song and it can tell you that this is the specific game you're playing, or it could tell you an entire series or an entire collection from one series. Unfortunately, we can't play music, so I can't play. So the next, I have this to keep for your records if you wanted to hear examples of it.
Okay.
But there's a specific theme that's very common with the Elder Scrolls titles. And if you hear it, you'd be like, Elder Scrolls, instantly. Even though it changes for the different games. So Morrowind, the theme is very simple fantasy. And then Oblivion takes that same theme and updates it to be more like late medieval, more metal, more orchestra. And then Skyrim pulls it back and adds vocals to it, but you still get that little hints of the theme in the song. So
Okay.
all these games are tied together by this one theme that shows up in all these games.
Now I'm kind of curious, with as sophisticated as this has become, when they're doing awards for video games, is there like a lot of composers who win awards for their musical scores as well?
There are certain composers who are well respected. We'll get to one of them in one of the later slides, Martin
Okay.
McDonald or McDowell, who's known for the Halo trilogy or series, I should say, not trilogy. A good composer, especially with like Japanese RPGs or JRPGs, I don't know why I said Japanese. I mean, that's what it stands for. But
Right.
you get certain composers who do the Final Fantasy series, and they're known for the series.
Now, are these guys who worked in anime music and then moved over to video games, or is this a whole different animal? Or do you know?
I don't know. I would say, like, because of how much product gets put out there, they could easily be they could easily have their time just taken up by making video game music.
Mm.
And with the contracts they have to sign today, I can't speak about years ago, but today they're probably signing contracts that limit the amount of work they can do other than with their with the game studio or certain publisher. A publisher
Okay.
might have a contract with them, and they might be able to do music for certain games with different developers.
Now, as an academic, I can ask you. I know there's always been music theory and certain ways of teaching music on a collegiate level. Has video game music become something that's taught in college?
It hasn't been taught at any of my colleges. Now, keep in mind, I'm out in the Western US. My colleges have typically been real heavy in engineering and business, lots of petroleum, chemical, geology,
Okay.
and then nursing and business. We're not strong in the arts. I think if you go further east or if you get out to the coast along California, I bet those schools have probably a lot more options.
Yeah, because I would imagine, especially with California, there's a lot of graphic arts
Yeah.
heavy type of schools, and I would imagine soundscaping is a thing.
Yeah. And when you're doing oh, actually, Jim just brings up the point I was about to say. You don't see a ton of crossover in film, video game, and pop composers. It happens, but it's rare. Because
Okay.
if you're good at making music for a game, you've got that certain mentality in your head
Okay.
that you have to design your music around the needs of the game, not usually the other way around. And
And yes,
I wonder
go.
how difficult that would be for a composer to switch from a game mindset to a film mindset.
Now, do you think that's because of the cues that are necessary in the programming for knowing when to
Probably
play?
because someone who's making music for a game, I imagine, as someone who doesn't do it, you're at this point you're familiar with the fact that you're not going to be making 20-minute songs. You're not going to be making these grand things unless you're working for like CD Projekt Red.
Okay.
Um,
Eddie brings up a good point. The Final Fantasy actually had a musical tour
Mhm.
because the music was so popular. That's
there
trippy.
are full orchestras who will go around do video game performances. I know in Salt
Wow.
Lake they would come to Salt Lake and Denver, and they would do songs from it would be labeled like songs from Zelda, and it would be a whole night of Zelda songs with an orchestra.
Nice. That's
It's
kind of
not that
like with in the I can't remember. I want to say the Pops in Britain. They do a special
oh
for like all the music of Doctor Who, or at least
yeah
they used to. And it's kind of that same. It's there's so many great orchestral pieces that they just make a night of it. So I
yeah.
imagine it's something similar.
And there's enough of a population, just here in the United States, there's enough of a population in their 30s like me who you're gonna have an orchestra doing, like Bjorn says, Skyrim.
Cool.
They announced Skyrim orchestra, you're gonna get the seats packed with people like my age and younger, and maybe older, because there are older gamers. I think the average gamer is somewhere around the 40s. So it's big enough of an industry that you're gonna fill a house if an orchestra decides to play a certain game.
Okay.
So yeah, I was just giving you an option to listen to some of that music. Unfortunately, time ran out and I wasn't able to get that to you in time.
Oh, that's fine. We'll put it in the link later on so that when people replay this, they can just link to it if they want to check it out.
Yeah, this one song on you, or this one video on YouTube, it has them back to back to back, so you can hear
Nice.
what they sound like. They're all very distinct songs, but you get the same core melody that represents Elder Scrolls in each of these different titles.
Okay.
I threw this in here because this is my personal background music. I grew up with Age of Empires and the whole trilogy. So it's ingrained in my brain. It's not the type of song that I could just start humming on my own, but when I hear it, I play a lot of RTS, which, if you're not familiar with the genre, it's real-time strategy. It's
kind of like what was it? World of Warcraft and
yeah.
StarCraft. It's
Yep.
kind of like that.
And
Command and Conquer was a classic.
yeah,
Remember that? Yeah.
I played a lot of Red Alert too.
Yep.
But Age of Empires, it's a type of game where you have people and you collect resources and you build and you fight armies in real time. But because how long it takes to play a single game, you have this soundtrack constantly playing in the back of your, in the background. It's not enough to distract you from playing. That's the big difference. It's not narrative driven, where it's like there are peaks and valleys because, you're following a story. It's one song playing while you play this game, whether it's gathering berries or fighting big armies. It's the same song.
So that's also why it works well as background music when you're doing something else and you just want something to be playing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's designed for that, and because I've listened to so many hundreds of hours of it, it's just calming.
Yeah.
And because I play so many RTSs, I'm used to that kind of music.
Cool.
And I just put another link
Good
for the
productivity music.
too.
Yeah, keep you busy.
And Random
then
Diorama saying Empire Earth was a good one.
Yep,
Also.
I did play Empire Earth. It had more interesting stuff to do than the Age of Empires, but Age of Empires was more polished.
As far as game,
you're gonna get people on both sides. I didn't hate Empire Earth. It just wasn't the genre I grew up with or the game I grew up with.
Right.
And then I just put on here, this is the strategy subgenre, so I don't know how much this isn't really relevant to what we're talking about, but just in case people are curious about strategy games, these are all games that have the same idea where the music is not designed to distract you. It's not going to peak and valley and get grandiose as you get into a fight. You don't want to be distracted while you're playing against other people.
Right. So this is going to be a very different soundtrack than a first-person shooter or something like Witcher was.
Yeah. And just some more examples of real-time strategy. What's interesting is, so like Age of Empires, the background music is medieval. It suits the population that you're playing as. Because there's Asian civilizations, there's Western European civilizations, but it's very classic medieval background music with flutes and wind instruments and stuff like that. You have Halo as an RTS, which has the benefit of being able to take the Halo soundtrack and incorporate music along with it to have a really kicking soundtrack while you're playing the game.
Nice. Now, when you're dealing with some of the more well-known IPs, like games that are based on Star Wars, like we just talked about on May the 4th, how much of the, familiar tunes are put into the game and then built upon?
If it's a property like Star Wars, it's so much of the original tunes. They want to just punch you in the face with that music.
Right.
Just repeatedly, like, you're gonna like this song. Dun, 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 just over and over and over again. I kind of wish they would do interesting music, but Star Wars, you don't have, if you license a game from Star Wars or from Lucasfilm or whoever has it nowadays,
right,
you're probably licensing a package. So like, you get the Star Wars license, you get to have the assets and the music to go along with your game. How much does that cost? Probably why we don't have a lot of developers making Star Wars games.
Right.
It also doesn't help that Disney is stupid and will have one company, EA, be the only exclusive right holder to make Star Wars games. It's kind of like Hasbro gets the exclusivity to make certain, figures.
Yes. As Goji says, John Williams to the face! Kabam! Imperial March!
It's great. I love having that music. But, when you have a game, I don't need the Star Wars theme playing over and over and over in the background. You could write something a little different.
Right. Now, was it LucasArts that was the game? Yeah, and they were doing great stuff. And then Disney put their foot in it, and everything went to EA, and people have been very unhappy ever since.
Yeah. Now, EA doesn't have I need to double check, but I believe they no longer have exclusivity. I think they just got into trouble with players, and probably their sales were declining because they were not putting out very much game in terms of games at all.
Right.
Random diorama. Are you talking about Herzog's Way? Or I think that's the way to say it. It was on the Genesis. It was kind of like a real-time strategy game, but you were like in this like mech that looked kind of like I love the game. I absolutely love it. But
As
you were,
far
like,
as
in
I'm
a jet,
aware,
and then you would transform into like a Robotech kind of thing with like a walker, and you
Oh.
drop different troops and stuff like that. I could do an entire show on that game alone.
I
love that game.
I feel like everyone says
I
that
did bring it up.
Dune was the first RTS, but maybe there's a definition that they're working with.
Yeah, I mean, if you got, they even made like a modern version of it you can play online for free. But
Yep, that's the one.
Yep, you can give orders to the units. Blew my mind when that came out. My friend brought it over, and we just played it all summer because you play 2-player head to head on these maps, or you can play versus the computer. Amazing game. I
Cool.
have it, and
Bjorn says there was a
love it.
pod
I have
racer aspect of one of the Star Wars games that had kind of a different soundtrack.
So he's talking about Star Wars Racer for the N64.
Oh, okay.
I played the game a ton. I cannot remember the music off the top of my head.
I have never met another person when I bring up that game that has played it. So random diorama, awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Let's see. So going back to some classics, Green Hill Zone, I think, is what everyone jumps to with Sonic. But those who play a lot more of the games, you get themes from Casino Night and Marble Zone, and they all show up in all subsequent Sonic games at some point. I had to throw in the blue blur because people would be like, "Oh, you got Mario. Where's your Sega?"
That's right. Got to give us Sonic some love.
You're paid by Nintendo. I wish they'd pay me. But if you want to talk about soundtracks, and somewhere in Texas, there's a man sitting on a couch watching a big screen TV, perking up, going, "I know that game."
Indeed.
Boy, our first-person shooters are just the best for a dynamic soundtrack. You want to distract the player? You can just play the hardest, most thrashing metal music, and it doesn't distract you at all from what you're doing.
No.
There's no base management. There's no playing games with your enemy while moving troops around. It's just lock and load and let the music play.
Cool.
And it almost is like you're here for the music, and the gameplay is just what keeps it going.
Yeah. I was always partial to Wolfenstein, but it was pretty much the same dynamic as far as the early Doom games.
Yeah. I mean, it's just metal and rock is just so perfect for first person shooters. Doesn't have to be for all of them, but
these games, Doom, Wolfenstein, Duke Nukem, those kind of games are just point, shoot, mobs just come at you like at a ridiculous pace. Every time you turn, it's just like,
Yeah.
So
and it's funny how you can have a really stressful day at work and you come home and you throw yourself into this stressful situation to relax, but it works. It's very relaxing to blow away monsters. I don't know why.
Yeah. Some people want to play an orchestra in the background. Other people just want to hear someone screaming into your microphone.
Well, if anyone remembers the first-person shooter /RPG called Hexen that was on the N64, where you cast spells instead of shooting a gun. Interesting game. I liked it.
Did you ever play? Because Will, maybe you played. Did you remember Tribes and Tribes 2?
No, I don't think I played those. What was that on?
I played on a computer with my friends in college. But
Bjorn says the world record for beating the first level of Doom is 8 seconds.
Wow.
Impressive.
Probably something to involve clipping. Like a lot of these world records are never straight. You play the level the way it's meant to be. Sometimes they find ways to clip through walls or do some other tricks to get around them. Yeah,
Pretty
but
cool.
yeah, first person shooters, just the perfect genre for rock and roll.
Definitely.
And speaking of rock and roll is also great when you're in an A10 Warthog.
Nice.
Nice.
I actually wait, where are you? There you are.
When you absolutely positively need to blow away everything in front of you, take a Warthog.
Yeah.
Nice.
This was my first flight simulator, and it's a full soundtrack. You open it up, you can pull out your where'd it go? Your DVD player.
You can play it just like a regular music CD.
Yeah.
Nice.
Actually, it's in there right now because I was listening to it.
Excellent.
It's just the soundtrack is so good.
Yeah. Sierra, that was a great company, man. They made some really good games.
It was when my friend told me that the way that they put music onto CDs is very much like music CDs. You can put it into a CD player and play it. I was like, no, they can't. And then I went home and tried it. It was like, this is the most amazing technology ever.
Cool. Yeah, so awesome.
That, it's like you can buy a game and it's more than just a game. It's something you can carry with you and just listen to good music.
I never knew that. And look, I'm today years old, right? I just found that out.
But pretty soon, Will, we're going to teach you about phones that don't have a cord.
What?
I know. Shocking.
Are you a wizard?
Will, toys are made after 1997.
What?
What?
But there is one song on this soundtrack called Blink of an Eye, and it's just, I can't do it justice by mimicking it.
It's like adrenaline.
It's so much adrenaline. And when you start the level and the first thing you got to do is go after a column of tanks, and you got this music just pumping in the background. It's got lyrics to it, and this guy just shouting, and it's like, this is how I imagine warfare. Not obviously for the real soldiers out there, it's not warfare. But, as a kid, I was probably like 11 maybe. Like, this is amazing. But the soundtrack is great because there are different levels. You could be in South America, you could be in Asia, and they take that rock theme and they incorporate elements of that folk music.
Jesse, that is a good idea for a show, though. We should talk to some of our veteran friends and ask them, what is your soundtrack for war? Because guys take their music with them when they go to combat, and I'm sure they have a playlist. I would be curious to know what that is.
One of my favorite scenes, I love Godzilla, and he's always number one. But when they played the early clip in Kong Skull Island, what song was it? They were on the what was that? They were in the Hueys.
Right, they were in the Hueys coming to the island. Is that the song you're talking
about?
And
they were dropping the depth charges to try to do some scanning or whatever. There was a really good classic song playing, and it was like that is like a proper Vietnam War theme.
Yeah.
And every time you see Vietnam represented on film, it's got to have that classic, the Stones or something playing.
Or Creedence Clearwater Revival, Fortunate Son. That one plays a lot.
But yeah, mellow and rock goes great with flight sims.
Nice.
Who would have thought? Well, with military flight sims. But now, what if you took that metal and you added a chorus?
Then you get Halo.
Just like we saw with The Witcher, Bungie didn't start off as a big developer. With Classic Combat Evolved, it was a modest-sized company.
They were playing Black Sabbath Paranoid as they were flying in the game, in the movie. I just got.
Is that what you were looking up?
Yeah.
Eddie says, I still have the music from the game Maximum Carnage on my playlist when I work out. That sounds like really good workout music.
Yeah.
Another rabbit hole we need to go down to, workout music. It's probably a whole different genre.
Yeah, and just like with Witcher, Halo, you get this chord that's I don't know the language.
Another moment where I wish we could just play a couple seconds.
I know,
of that, please, because it's just.
But there's a point in the song where a guitar riff kicks in.
Nice.
It's very traditional orchestra, cool music, and then the guitar riff. da 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 da, and you're shooting little alien dudes and like dodging grenades, and then the guitar riff kicks in and you feel invincible. And suddenly you are the Master Chief, just blowing aliens left and right of you.
It gives it a more epic feel. Yeah.
Or blowing them away, right? You said,
Oh, okay.
You're destroying them. You're not,
I had a thought in my head of like explosions going off.
yeah.
So Bjorn uses the Halloween theme when he's on the treadmill. I guess that's good for keeping
It's
your
funny
pace.
though, Jesse, that happened, because one of my favorite memories was playing Halo split screen on the original Xbox, and you could bring two Xboxes together and two TVs, and you wouldn't have to play with the split screen. You could play, so we would like kind of angle them so you couldn't see each other's screen and play against each other. When
Cool.
my brother and stuff would come over, but one time he like killed me and he was like, "Dude, I blew you." I was like, "Ew, dude." I was like one of the best moments we were playing.
The funny thing with playing two screens side by side is you just point a gun air and fire, and you're gonna hear on the other screen how far away you are.
So you can judge it. Nice.
My friend's like, "Stop doing that." I'm like, "No, that's how you win."
Like, yeah, because you had to play four screens, split screen four ways on GoldenEye. And,
GoldenEye.
I had a friend who like spent the like an entire like Christmas break just memorizing all the levels. So like even if you just glance at your screen, he knew exactly where you were.
Well, the later game that came out, Perfect Dark, that also came out on 64. There's the Farsight gun, which is the one gun that can see through walls.
Oh,
and when you're four players on one screen and someone goes blue and green, Predator view, everyone is looking at that one screen like, who is he stalking through the walls with that gun? But everyone knows the Halo theme, or if you're big into first-person shooters, I would say you're familiar with the Halo theme. And that was written by Martin O'Donnell, who did the majority of Halo music until he left. He stopped working with Bungie. Once it was no longer Bungie, it was now 343 Studios, and Bungie went and did their own thing because Microsoft can't seem to keep people. Microsoft killed my favorite game studio twice, so they can go to hell.
That does seem to be a recurring theme that, people will develop a game everybody likes, and then the studio behind it just seems to implode. What is
it's not that they implode. It's like, we want to do something else. No, you're going to keep making this game, and you're going to do it every single year until you no longer have love for your own titles.
I would love to do a stream one day, because Random Diorama here says, he has a whole CD rack of old PC games from 94 through 2002. He doesn't think they'll run on any modern PCs. Yeah, I think you got to do some kind of finagling to get them to run on some of the newer machines. But he hasn't tried in a long time. But I got to tell you, the CDs, but the box art wasn't PC box art was like game.
Perfect.
When they did the big box art for the PC games before they shrunk them down, there was just some beautiful boxes. I'd love to even just do a stream on just beautiful PC game box art. Always.
Will, while we're here, we're live, and you're here, I'm here, we're all here. Random Diorama, you want to come and do a lounge with us? I think Will is chomping at the bit to talk some video games. So hit us up. We'll put something together. That would be fun.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. So I'll rush through some of these next ones because we're already at 54 minutes. But I just want to point out on this screen, the Halo 3 soundtrack. A few months after it came out, it made the top 200 on the Billboard 200 on December 15th.
For like just music period.
In the United States, built top 200 on the Billboard. So it pushed out traditional musicians.
Wow.
Because Halo 3 fans were just eating it up. The next few are just talking about atmosphere, which is my thing because I played so many RTSs.
Right. I played through StarCraft on the PC. Yeah. That was cool.
Yep.
So atmosphere can do a number of things, and that's what these next three slides will demonstrate, is they can do, for example, world building. The music doesn't have to be crazy in your face. In StarCraft, if you're playing as the Terrans, the humans, essentially. The
Right.
background music, the atmospheric music, you hear sounds of like welding and grinding and cutting and people making noises. It's very industrial. Like there are people doing work behind you. And
Right.
when you look at the world, it's a world where people clearly live in. It's dirty. It's very run down because this is the outer regions of the galaxy. And it gives you a very real sense of like you're in this place where people are always repairing and building things.
And that's a big part of StarCraft too, is you're constantly building things just so you can enhance your ability to defend or take territory or what have you.
Yeah. Whereas other types of atmosphere are just for tasks. It's just there to fill in the void space while you work. And Minecraft is the ultimate work experience. In fact, I play Minecraft music in the background when I have like an hour-long project I'm going to work on. It's just there to make it so you're not sitting in silence. And it's funny because with Minecraft, like in some servers, hundreds of people will come together to just rebuild Minas Tirith at one scale height.
Wow.
That's what people do. You just mine and build. And it's the perfect music for just low key, fill in the void space, keep your mind focused on a repetitive task over and over again.
Okay.
Whereas other atmosphere is for mood, setting the mood.
Best game ever.
Yes. Yes.
Although Metroid Fusion was a Game Boy Advance game, which was pretty much an SNES game, but I used to play it on the TV with the converter for the GameCube. Oh, so good.
Yeah, it's also terrifying. Fusion? Yeah, Fusion's the one where your doppelganger is chasing you.
Yeah. It's like Super Metroid 2, basically, but it was on the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, so good.
But within the world of Metroid or Super Metroid, as Samus, a lone bounty hunter, you are going into the depths of a planet by yourself. There are no other people. There's no talking at all, no dialogue. You are just going deeper and deeper into a planet, and the background music is just eerie. And it gives you a sense of being uneasy because you're on your own. You're isolated.
That was something that became sort of a trope for a minute too, was horror video games. And it's talking about atmosphere when you have just this undertone of dread that's,
horror games are just like horror movies. They are strong as ever. People are still making them. And that's what it does. It makes you uneasy. And this game, there are periods where it will go silent. You'll walk through a door
always
into
like
a
the
new hallway.
Yes, and the music just stops, and you're like, "Wait, what's happening?"
You pause as a player. You put your controller down. You're just like, "What?" And then it's usually leading up to something bad. So when the music stops, you get nervous. There's two things that can happen that puts players at pause. When the music stops, you pause. Or when you hear Latin, when you hear a Latin chorus, because a Latin chorus usually means you're about to fight a boss.
Okay, good to know.
So if you hear nothing or Latin, you should be scared.
And now you know.
If you're interested in different types of music, there's soundtracks that are more funky and upbeat and very different from what you might listen to on your own time. So Jet Set Radio, it featured a lot of, more at that time pop type music, popular music. But Splatoon, it's very funky and high beats and lots of, stuff like that. Street Fighter 6 coming out is a perfect game for its community, which is based on the fighting game community. They love urban type music, and therefore they want that in their game. And the Street Fighter 6, which is coming out soon, is perfectly built around their new audience, who is keeping the game alive, essentially.
Right.
And it's not music I would go out and listen to on Spotify, but it fits with the game and the aesthetics of the game. Rhythm-based games.
Parappa the Rappa. and, yeah. I remember Parappa the Rappa that used to play on like the demo all day long.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So these are what you would typically think of when you think of rhythm-based games. Parappa the Rappa, where you're hitting certain beats. You've got Guitar Hero. Sorry, what are the other ones called?
That was Diddy Kong, right? Drum.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
the drum
thinking
one?
like
Yeah.
Guitar Hero. There was like a couple competing with it, and I'm suddenly blanking. I can't remember.
Oh, we know what you're talking about, and they did actually use traditional music in some of their games as well.
Yeah, they licensed. They paid big money to license like actual music. And so if you wanted to hear it in your household and you had a cheap, well, not cheap, it was like plastic guitar for like $100 or whatever,
right?
You could sit there and play it. And then in Japan, they love the Donkey Kong drums.
Nice.
You find those.
Ted Millich is saying that Grand Theft Auto was cool because you could actually change the radio in the car.
Yep.
Oh, and on the Xbox version, you could rip your own CDs to the Xbox hard drive. And when you were in Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I know this worked. You could play your CDs or the CDs you ripped into the Xbox. Yeah, you would rip them into the Xbox Media Player, and they would come through on the car. So it was really
Bjorn says Rock Band was the other one.
Rock
was
Band.
like Guitar Hero.
That's what it was. Yes.
Yep, that's right.
And Realm of Toys. Hey,
Realm of Toys.
good to see you.
And hi, Ted.
So let's look at some modern rhythm games. So Crypt of the Necro Dancer was a big one. It's 16-bit or 8-bit, 8-bit digital style, pixel style. And there's a constant beat in the level. You can see those little blue bars at the bottom of the screen. And as they hit the heart, that's a beat. And you are moving your character and attacking with the beat.
Oh,
trippy.
While doing a dungeon run.
Oh, wow.
And
so the music is actually part of the gameplay.
Yeah,
that's
you
cool.
have to move and dance along with the music, and the monsters are all doing it too. So you are having to watch the beat, play to the rhythm, but also plan 2 to 3 steps ahead. Wow. I really can't do this. This is somewhat too difficult for me. But it was so popular on the indie scene that it got picked up and put on Nintendo Switch, and it was very popular, that they were able to license another game with Nintendo called Cadence of Hyrule.
Oh,
so heard of the same developer, same theory. There's a whole beat going on, but now they featured Legend of Zelda music.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just reworked into this more rhythmic style of music, just with similar beats.
Now Link has rhythm.
Yeah, Link, Princess Zelda, a couple of characters in the game, but the same thing. You're moving and attacking with the beat.
Cool.
One that just came out is Hi-Fi Rush, which is another game very similar. There's a constant like soundtrack in the background, and this is free flow, so you are moving anywhere you want. You're not set to like grids, but you are moving and attacking with the beat. I wish I could show you.
Right.
Because it's kind of hard to explain.
How does this differ from something like, what was that other popular game? Dance Dance Revolution, where you physically have to be, the way you move with the game.
Yeah, so in those styles of games, that's more of like Parappa the Rappa or Guitar Hero, where you have visual cues and you're trying to match things.
Okay.
Where the visual cue is less, it's not there, it's all sound. And you're playing and attacking with the sound, but in Hi-Fi Rush, you're not matching it. Your movement, no matter what you do, is set to the soundtrack. It's really hard to explain.
Yeah, it seems interesting.
I don't have the technical knowledge to explain it, but this is a new game and it killed it. Everyone loved it.
Now, are there any gameplay demos on YouTube we could link to this?
Probably. I mean, yeah.
We'll take a look. We'll do that for people who want to check it out on the replay.
it was a popular. Most people who are video game streamers who will stream newest games, they all covered this. This was a big one when it came out. I threw this in here because I love this game and I love its soundtrack.
Yeah.
I don't have any explanation. I just wanted to say I love this game.
Well, you don't need to explain it. You just
Yeah.
like what you like. So that's
I like
cool.
Mega
Yeah.
Man. And for Mega Man fans who are also action figure fans, it is coming soon from Jada. They will be doing Mega Man. I'm not sure which game those figures are going to be based on.
From the first 1 and 2 so far.
Okay.
So this is Mega Man X, which is the Super Nintendo.
Mhm.
Whereas Mega Man is from classic NES through Super.
And he's playing it right now.
Look at
Nice.
that.
Playing Mega Man?
Apparently.
Or maybe the one before it. I don't know.
But yeah, I just when you get to the villain select screen, it's just like da 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 da. I wish I could mimic it, but the sounds are just so I can't vocalize it, but they're all right here, and it's like the moment I see that screen, I know what the sound is.
I know
Right,
exactly
kind of
how you feel.
like it was with Mario or Donkey Kong. You see the screen, you hear the sound in your head.
But because it's 16-bit and Super NES, the soundtrack is rocking. Your tools went from like a belt with 3 things on it to like this entire toolbox.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you have Pixel Orchestra. Just these games that have beautiful music.
Very epic.
All of
these.
Yep.
It's narrative driven, depending on what's happening on the scene. It might be real heartbreaking, and so the music gets emotional. It might be real epic when you're in a big battle. These are the types of games that allow creativity when it comes to music, and it allows musicians to be creative.
And it also it creates a whole different level for the storytelling because, like you said, it is much more sophisticated, not only visually, but audially. You have all this going on and you're telling this huge, whether it's in cutscenes or, intros, it's beautiful. In some cases, better than a lot of films these days.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with Final Fantasy, that stuff is just very ethereal and beautiful. A lot of the cinematic sequences.
And this isn't a thing of the past. We look to games today. Mm-hmm. This 16-bit style of pixel gaming, whether it's pixel based like Shovel Knight or it's more cleaned up like Octopath Traveler, it's still a popular genre today. It's just now we can do more with it. But the soundtracks are still there. They're still groovy. They're still creative and fun. Octopath Traveler is more like Final Fantasy, where it's this big epic world. Shovel Knight is more of a side scroller with just a cool beat to it, like Mega Man.
Undertale, now, a lot of these available on Steam, or are they for particular consoles? Or
Undertale is that's a good question. Well, so Octopath, I have only a Switch and I have Steam. I don't know if these are on Xbox or PlayStation because I don't own any of those modern consoles.
Okay.
But I know all of these are available in the Nintendo store.
Cool. Yeah, Bjorn was a big fan of the Zelda game from the 64. That was very cool. I enjoyed that one.
And I think this is my last slide. Yeah, it is. So video games means so much to my generation that a lot of people around my age got into music making, and they do music inspired by video games.
Cool.
So like Micah, can you see the mic? Yeah, here. She's a great vocalist. And she started to sing songs from Skyrim, Elder Scrolls Skyrim, because they put in these, you go into a pub or, something, and there'd be a bard playing a song in the background. She got famous because she was basically singing those songs from those bards in the game.
Nice.
Miracle of Sound would create his own music for games. They weren't used in the games, but if you played Assassin's Creed, he would take that game and create his own song based on it.
Nice.
That's cool. Yeah,
The groove was one of those a cappella people where you would have like on YouTube, like it would be 9 images of him singing this
Singing
one
together.
song.
Okay.
Yeah. So
That's
we
cool.
have a whole bunch of people from my generation who are so in love with games and what they've taught us in terms of music that they went on to become performers themselves.
Excellent. I always love to see how people get creative with the tools they have at hand. So it's really neat.
And I think that is it for those. So we can. Oh, I can't take that down. Oh, you can. Okay.
I have the power.
Do I have
Well,
a
that was-
sword?
Yeah,
I knew
really
this was going to be
stuff.
interesting.
A lot
I
of
knew
stuff I didn't know about, some familiar things. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and what sparked this was when Chad was doing his Infinite playlist, he mentioned that when he's working in his Joe room, he'll have something 8-bit. And I was like, what is 8-bit? And he's like, well, now I know. It's kind of zen for the mind. You put something on the background,
really
you get
does
doing
work.
what you need to do. Yeah.
You're doing busy work and you got that industrious kind of, upbeat kind of keeping the pace music going. And that's exactly what it was meant for, to keep you working in game.
Or
playing.
people like me playing RTSs and Minecraft my life. So we just had chill music in the background. Because
I wonder-
we can't exist without something in the background.
Right. I was going to say, I wonder how much the newer genre of lo-fi comes from video game music inspiration, because it's kind of that same
I think
vibe.
so.
I'm sure it plays a role in it somehow.
Yeah. And
Well, that's
definitely,
cool.
I could definitely remember the moment, like, I was probably in my mid 20s, and, a lot of my employees were high schoolers at the time. And they would, I'm like, what are you listening to? And they're listening to music from video games, like video game soundtracks. And I was like, really? Like, you just walk around listening? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I was familiar with music as we played it and stuff, but yeah,
Well, think of it this way. Like, okay, some games like Mega Man, you could beat in like maybe 2 hours or something.
Mhm.
But a lot of games that are RTSs or role-playing games, or even your standard action game like Call of Duty, these games can get up to 60, 70 hours out of them. And
easily,
especially if you do a second playthrough. So you imagine you're hearing the same music 50, 60, 70, 100 hours on a single game because you played enough.
Mhm.
You really get addicted to some of that music because it's just been in your brain for so long. I think we lost Largo.
We did, or he's just
Okay.
stunned. He was stunned by our conversation. He couldn't. He just couldn't speak. But yeah, so yeah, a lot of really good stuff there. Like I said, and to me, it was always, the music was familiar because we listened to it, but the idea of taking it with you without playing the game was foreign to me. And I just remember like coming to that realization, like, oh, you could enjoy this just as the music.
Yeah, like I keep Silent Thunder up there with my music CDs.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put it in my computer, but I can listen to it anytime I want.
That's so cool though, that's the actual game CD, right? And then you can just play it as a music CD. That's fantastic. I never knew that.
Very trippy. Well, kids, we're way over our hour mark, and
Sure.
this has been very interesting. And I'm glad we did this. It's a different rabbit hole to go down. It's always cool to look at different and new things that I don't have a lot of knowledge about, but now we can.
And we got to figure
say
out how to sample stuff during these streams because, like I said, just playing it, just I don't know, what is it, 5 seconds of it or something could get you messed up. But
we'll get the layer lawyers on it and see what they say.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was good to create the slides and think about my childhood and talking about it.
Cool.
And,
well,
and forget about all the work you have to do tonight.
Yeah.
For an hour. I'm sorry.
It's yeah, that time of year in academia when stuff has deadlines. But yeah, glad you could take a break for a little while and get away from that and enjoy some tunage. So hopefully you guys at home found something interesting from this, and we'll see which playlist we hit next. We'll do another one soon with another guest, and never know what's gonna be on the playlist.
Yeah.
So everybody have a good evening.
Yep.
Enjoy your dinner or what have you. I'm going to go find a tasty beverage.
Nice.
Jesse, don't work too hard. Let the badger pitch in as he can.
Well,
I would
it was
try.
really nice talking to you guys. Thank you very much, and have a great night.
Take care.
Yep. Good night.